All right. Welcome. Welcome to Man Was Not Born to Cry. And welcome to this meeting today. So this was one of the requests that Joel had to play, and not specifically this song, but it came to me to do this, so that's why I did it. And you can read the last paragraph of the chapter. It will tell you that. It's like the Emmanuel, God with us. That's the song you should play every day, he said, or sing every day. And keep in your remembrance, like, God is with us. It's right here. It's happening now. And that's every day like that. It doesn't change. And so that is, yeah, a great way to start today. And so thank you for being present here today in this Man Was Not Born to Cry. And this might be the day that you have cried a lot. That's okay too. You know, it's not that you're not allowed to cry. It is just you were not born to cry. But in the recognition of our transition, as we are undergoing this, the release by tears can be so great, because it is a new freedom that you're actually, say, coming into, to become free of all the aspects of the bondage of humanhood that you finally can let go of, no matter what the idea is. So that goes with an emotional release, and that's perfectly all right. That's perfectly all right, you know. So it's like, in the process of the transformation that we're undergoing, it's a natural thing to cry and to release, and that's actually a really good thing. Even though we say, like, you were not born to cry and to suffer. No, of course not. You were born to be free of all of that. And every day is a step closer to that. Every moment is a step closer to that. So give everything to it. It's what Joel says. In the little things, in the things that you can, give, 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 give. You know, this is really the message of today in the meditation that we're going to do. Give, not worrying about what you give, but give. It doesn't have to be that. It does not have to be that. No, give what you can to this. So that's what we're going to say, yeah, meditate with Joel's expression. And for that, I share something that I already, say, prepared on YouTube, so you can listen. We can actually use it in our meeting to meditate with this. So there will be, like, I think it's a 2-minute or expression or so. Then there will be 4 minutes of silence, maybe a little bit longer. I don't know exactly, and then it will repeat again. So this will happen a couple of times, as you are used to.
Truth itself dwells in us, feeds us, and all those who come to us. So we begin to practice this great truth. The kingdom of God is within me. Through the grace of God, through this truth, I can feed multitudes. I can heal multitudes. I can share, supply, companionship, friendship, service, goods. From the infinity, which is my being, I can begin to pour out rather than to look out there and expect somebody to bring it to me. If we practice this every day, even if it is only carrying a penny here or there, even if it is only carrying a bit of service here or there, even if it is only sharing a few moments of companionship, service, dedication, and There are those who can't do that, are confined to bed, or confined to the house, or confined to an institution. They can begin to share forgiveness. They can look out at this world of enemies, personal enemies, national enemies, racial enemies, the world's enemies, and start to forgive them and pray that God's mercy open their souls and their consciousness. They can begin to pray, not too much for their friends and relatives, but for the sick who are in the world, or the sinful, or those who are down. You may say, oh, but I'm down further than they are. In this realization, you forget that. You give what you have to give. And if you have nothing to give but prayer, then pray. If you have nothing to give but forgiveness, give forgiveness. If you have nothing to give but service or dedication, give these, but give.
La vérité elle-même habite en nous, nous nourrit, ainsi que tous ceux qui viendront à nous. Nous commençons donc à mettre en pratique cette grande vérité. Le royaume de Dieu est en moi. Par la grâce de Dieu, grâce à cette vérité, je peux nourrir des multitudes. Je peux guérir des multitudes. Je peux partager des approvisionnements, de la camaraderie et de l'amitié, des services et des biens. De l'infini qui est mon être, je peux commencer à me dévouer plutôt que de regarder là-bas et d'attendre que quelqu'un me l'apporte. Si nous pratiquons cela tous les jours, même si ce n'est qu'emporter un sou ici et là, même si c'est apporter un peu de service ici et là, même si c'est partager quelques moments de camaraderie, de service, de dévouement. Et il y a ceux qui ne peuvent pas faire cela, confinés au lit, confinés à la maison ou confinés dans une institution. Ils peuvent commencer à partager le pardon, ils peuvent regarder ce monde d'ennemis, ennemis personnels, ennemis nationaux, ennemis raciaux, ennemis du monde. Pardonnez-leur et priez pour que la miséricorde de Dieu ouvre leur âme et leur conscience. Ils peuvent commencer à prier, non pas trop pour leurs amis et leurs proches, mais pour les malades, les pécheurs ou ceux qui sont déprimés. Vous pourriez dire, mais je suis plus bas qu'eux. Dans cette prise de conscience, vous oubliez cela. Vous donnez ce que vous avez à donner. Si vous n'avez rien d'autre à donner que la prière, priez. Si vous n'avez rien d'autre à donner que le pardon, pardonnez. Si vous n'avez rien d'autre à donner que du service et du dévouement, donnez-le.
Well, Joel was talking to us, and he was pretty clear in what he said. And so that's an instruction, of course. And you see, it's like you literally forget about your own desires, even in your giving too. It's like if you start to give beyond, you could say, beyond your own desires, you will discover that you're actually giving to yourself. And whether that is forgiveness or whether that is giving something, whether that is giving attention or being there for someone in the right time, or who knows how this will come to you, you see that that actually is a gift to yourself, and the recognition of the connection is suddenly there. Like suddenly you recognize, yes, I'm actually one with everything, with everyone. And so you can only discover that by giving giving, in fact, by the action of giving. And so that's why this came to me. It's like it's a beautiful expression. It's very practical in what Joel shares here, and useful. So and that's why it was great to take a look at that. Now the next part is we're actually in these meetings, you could say we're in phase 3, which is, first it was like worldly themes, then it was like the individual experience, and now is it like the I that I am is in fact the part. And so the chapter that we use today is chapter 9, I think it is. Yeah, it is chapter 9, and the title of it is Spiritual Dominion. Now this Spiritual Dominion chapter starts with a poem that I like to read to you. Here it says this. It's from Robert Browning, and you might have read it many times, or you might have seen it many times, but I'm repeating this. Truth is within ourselves. There is an inmost center in all of us, in us all, where the truth abides in fullness, and to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than in effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. So I'll repeat this once more. Wow, there's so much light in it for me that it's hard for me to read. Truth is within ourselves. There is an inmost center in all of us. And that is like literally happening in this moment, that you can remember that. Where the truth abides in fullness, and to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than in effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. This is great. So you see that Joel uses this reference a lot in his talks, like finding a way for the imprisoned splendor to escape. Now this imprisoned splendor loves to escape, and it loves to, say, dominate the whole of your consciousness, because it's the most natural thing that can happen to you. The most natural part of you is the imprisoned splendor, the immensity of giving your love to God and receiving the love of God at the same time. So this is our, can you imagine that this is our practice? Wow, how great is that? Like Robert Browning made a poem of it, and he puts it right on the spot, doesn't he? It's like so beautiful. The imprisoned splendor is ready to escape right now. It isn't imprisoned any longer by you, say, getting out of the way, by you allowing that to occur, by you releasing your fear of, say, missing out or losing something. Like this imprisoned splendor immediately fills your consciousness. Now you say, like, well, I love to experience that. Well, that is certainly possible. How do you do that then? Well, Joel gives instructions, and many of them, especially in the meditation, you could hear it so many times. Give, give, give. Like, give to God. What you think is missing in any situation, give that. In anyone who you meet, if you think something is missing in the situation, give to it. Whether you're in an institution, whether you're completely bound to bed, whether you're, there's no, say, excuse not to give. Whether you are down, pray for the ones who are down and give everything to them. You know what will happen? Well, I know that you already know what will happen. what will happen is that you release, in fact, your limitation. You release your fear that you're missing out on something. You release your, say, desire that you want something that someone else has and you don't seem to have it. You release all of that. Joel says this many times too, like if release is not a part of your meditation, actually not much has happened. The release of self-identity, the release of everything that you think you need in order for you to be happy, has nothing to do with anything. It is just imprisoning the splendor that is waiting for you patiently to escape. So it's like you have the bottle opener for this imprisoned splendor. You can open that bottle. You can open that. Yeah, it's a little bigger than a bottle. You can open your consciousness to receive that. It will immediately be in your consciousness as soon as you allow that. And it's like it's not rocket science. It is the most simple thing you can possibly do. But we have made it a little bit more complex in our thinking about it, and thinking that we don't deserve it, and thinking that we are guilty, or thinking that we are sinful, or thinking who knows what we're thinking. And in fact, it comes down to all of that will be released in order to say, let the imprisoned splendor escape and fill your consciousness completely. So that's just the opening poem of the chapter. So one more time. Truth is within ourselves. Well, we knew that. Now we're going to find that. There is an inmost center in us all, where the truth abides in fullness. And to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than in effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. I shall not fear, Joel says, I shall not fear any conditions existing in the world. For I and the Father are one, and that Father is greater than he that is in the world. The Father within me doeth the works. I shall not fear any conditions existing in the world, for I and the Father are one, and that Father is greater than he that is in the world. The Father within me doeth the works. So I don't want one more. I got a couple more, but these ones I want to share too. Truth does not come to me. This is good to realize. Truth does not come to me. It is within me. Supply, infinite supply, God's supply, is within me. It does not come to me. It flows out from me. See, it's all a matter of direction. It's recognizing. I'll come to that later. So the companionship of God is within me. It does not come to me. And all I seek is to share that companionship which God has given me. Like, it flows out from me. Now this is really great, because in fact Joel is say pointing at the whole idea of cause and effect. In fact, you know, it's like as a human being you think that something is caused from outside, that something is affecting you, that something from there is doing something to you, that you can expect something from there and actually that will come to you. You really think that law exists if you believe the human beliefs. Now, Joel uses 3 examples. Companionship, like that's for one thing. Supply, of course. Like, it's one of the most popular things that you could say. It's like supply. Well, we love the ideas of manifesting supply. Like there are so many courses on that. Manifesting supply, using the universe to manifest supply, and all this. So that's great, but it has no. Say you don't want to miss out on the idea. Where does this start? What am I? It is really about that. What am I? I am as I was created, like I am that I am. I'm not anything else. So whatever that is like, it is within me. Browning's poem, we all said yes to it. It's like, yeah, it's within me. Yeah, absolutely. So the consequence of that is that you see yourself as an effect of God. Literally, God is my source, right? It is like, yeah, God is my source. He created me. I am a father of one. I'm the son of the Father, right? So that means that is all happening within me. So the only thing that can happen, the direction of all good, you could say, is from me extending it. Give, extend, give, extend. It cannot come from anywhere else. You want happiness? Give. You want supply? Give. You want recognition of your connectedness? Give to God. Love God with all of your heart. Well, that's one of the commandments. Love God with all of your heart. And your neighbor as yourself. Like, love God with all of your heart. Let that come from within. Don't wait for a God to love you. It's like He's doing it by your giving to it. You receive what He is giving you. You give. So that's so beautiful with this, however Joel expresses it. But it's like it is a fundamental shift in the way that you look at everything. No, nothing is coming from there. No, it all starts here and it extends outward, like it extends into my dream, the ones that are around me, in my daily life, my this, my that, like that. This is the direction. I don't expect anything to come from there. I don't expect any good to come to me. Like, no, I'm actually giving that. In my giving, I receive it. And we know the principle, but it's great to have a moment to take a look at it. It's like it has everything to do with you recognizing yourself as an effect of God. You're not an effect of this world. You're not, that has nothing to do with it. So you being an effect of God means that the only thing that can pour out of you is coming from, say, from God. This world has nothing for me, for my kingdom is a spiritual kingdom, and I receive my good from the spiritual source that we call God. This world has nothing for me, for my kingdom is a spiritual kingdom, and I receive my good from the spiritual source. Emmanuel, God with us, morning, noon, and night, and cross the river of ignorance to my kingdom, and know forever my peace. Emmanuel, God with us, morning, noon, and night. Sing it. It's what Joel said. Sing it morning, noon, and night. Emmanuel, God with us, and cross the river of ignorance to my kingdom, and know forever my peace. What a message. Like, wow, that's so beautiful. My peace. Remember my peace. Like, experience my peace. Experience my kingdom. How can I come to the kingdom of God? recognizing that I'm an effect of God, that God is my source, and I give to God. And this is how I know that I'm home. Not some other day. No, in this moment. Just very simple. In this moment, God is with me. God is within me. He cannot come to me. He is within me. If I think I cannot experience God for one or another reason, you're looking in the wrong place for it. It is within you. It is you are the natural expression of God by realizing this. So that's a very short, I keep an eye on the time. It's like that's in a very compact way sharing what Joel shares in the chapter. Now, in a moment, we're going to listen to Joel in the tape. It's 272b, I think it is. And I will read the title in a moment. I'm sharing that with you. So now I got one more song, like Emmanuel, God with Us, sung by Amy Grant. And that's a lovely song too. So that's the interlude here before the video will start.
Good evening. Let us start with this question because it leads right into our subject. Except the corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. Having lived in the country and observed the inactivity of the grain when left in the granary, and also the activity of the corn when in the ground, the master statement as quoted above has been a source of puzzlement to me. The activity of the qualities of the soil on the corn disintegrates the outer husk, which permits the seed of life to emerge and thrust up its green shoots. Did Jesus apply the term die to this disintegration? And of course the answer is yes. Yes. If an individual lives the ordinary human life into which he is born, he will just continue to go on from the cradle to the grave as a statistic. He'll neither be a man nor a woman. He will just be a figure in an insurance tabulation column. He will wake up in the morning but not be certain of living until night. All of the forces of the universe may act upon him and make him ill, destroy his life, destroy his wealth, and always he is in the position of being a nothing, just wafted here and there, up and down, good or ill. But if at any moment of his or her life there comes to conscious realization, what am I doing and where am I going? What am I accomplishing? Or what is being accomplished through me? Or is this the end and aim of existence? Then begins that which we have called a search for God, a search for truth, a search for ultimate reality. And somewhere along the line, there comes the perception that I of my own self am nothing. There comes the realization that there is something beyond human existence, something which cannot be known to the five physical senses. It cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled. It can't even be reasoned. It can't even be thought of. It is something that dawns in consciousness. It has been called the light, yet it isn't at all a light in the sense of physical light, but it is a light, it is a discernment, and with this dawning comes the start of a new experience. The beginning of it, Paul calls dying daily. Jesus tells us that a man must first die before he can be born to eternal life. But not die in what we call death, because he also said that death is the last enemy to be overcome. Death is not a friend in the human sense of the word. Death is an enemy to be overcome. Do not confuse that word death with passing from the human scene. Everyone who has ever been on the face of the globe, or ever will be, is destined to pass from sight, from the human scene. But it is only death when it takes place in spiritual ignorance, in material sense. It is not death when it takes place in the experience of those who have reached a spiritual path. For instance, leaving this plane of existence was not death for Jesus Christ, nor was it death for Moses or Elijah, nor was it death for John. Passing from this scene is never death. When the transition takes place to those who are on the spiritual path. But the death, which is an enemy, is the passing that takes place in darkness, in ignorance of the light, in ignorance of spiritual truth or spiritual values. Now, this death of which Jesus speaks, and Paul, the death that must precede the awareness of life eternal, this death is a dying to the personal sense of selfhood. That is, it is a transition in consciousness which takes place in proportion. That's why it is called dying daily, because it only happens in proportion as we come to the awareness that my life is not mine. God lives my life. God is the mind of me, the soul, the spirit, the being, and even my body is the temple of God. Even the body is not mine. You see, a person in material sense feels that their body is their own, and therefore they can do anything they like with it. That is why, before we come to spiritual wisdom, we don't mind how much tobacco we fill ourselves with, or strong drink. We don't mind the dissipations of sitting up half of the night with card playing, or all of the other dissipations of humankind, because this is my body, I can do with it as I wish. Other people do not think of that about their body, they think of it about their money. Oh, this is my money, I can do with it as I wish. So if they wish to dissipate it, they do so. If they wish to throw it away or gamble it away, they do so. Always because it's my money, I can do as I wish with it. Now, the dying daily brings the realization that this is not true. This is not my body, this is the temple of God, and it is given to me as an instrument through which I function as long as I need it. When I have no longer any need of this body, I will lay it down. Jesus said, I can lay it down or pick it up. And it is so. As we need it, we pick it up, and as we do not need it, we lay it down. And meanwhile, we remember that this body is the gift of God to us, and it is to fulfill a function in our lives as long as we need it. And therefore, the body is a possession which is to be well cared for. It is just now being learned that more people destroy their bodies with the food they eat than they do with dissipations. And so the next generation, which will be taught truth about foods, will have even better care of their body than this generation, and they will have a longer use for it. They will be able to maintain it in health and harmony for a far greater period of time than we do now, merely by understanding the nature of foods. Of course, those who, in addition to the care of their bodies with proper foods, realize that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, they will go even a step further in the preservation of the life and health and vitality of their bodies. So too, in the dying process, you become aware of the fact that your money is not yours, even if you inherited it or if you earned it. It is not yours. It is God's. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Son, all that I have is thine. Therefore, as these possessions come to us, whether in the form of monies, property, securities, we learn that they are to be as wisely handled, as well cared for as our bodies. Not developing greed or lust for properties, but being intelligent in the use of every gift that God has given us. And the body is one gift. Money and properties is another gift. In the dying daily, we realize that the mind is not ours. And therefore, the mind is not limited either to our personal experience or to education. Mind actually is also the gift of God, the substance of God, the activity of God, and therefore we can open the mind we can learn to listen, to open consciousness and be receptive, and then find that our mind is as infinite as God, and that we can draw on it to an infinite capacity, whether or not we have personal experience or personal education, because the mind actually is our inlet to God, to fulfillment, to completeness, to perfection. In the same way, then, we learn that every quality, love, joy, peace, success, home, companionship, none of these are ours. All of these are gifts of God. Therefore, we can never be without them. We are only in lack, whether it's lack of funds, or whether it's lack of love, or whether it's lack of companionship, or lack of home, or lack of transportation. We are only in lack while we believe that these things belong to us, sometimes even that they are our right. Once we surrender these to God, and remember that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and all that therein is, then we will find that we are in full possession of completeness. Completeness and perfection. This is our dying daily, but it cannot happen until this something, in our work we call it the Christ, until that something has been admitted to our consciousness and it begins to break up this personal selfhood, and the life of God begins to shoot forth in fullness, in completeness, and in perfection. Now, the second part of this says, is this not a parallel to the activity of truth within ourselves, as expressed by Robert Browning? Truth is within ourselves. There is an inmost center in us all where the truth abides in fullness. And to know rather consists in opening out a way whence the imprisoned splendor may escape, than an effecting entry for a light supposed to be without. And indeed, this very verse is in the front of every copy of The Infinite Way which has ever been printed. And actually, that is the subject of our work tonight, individual responsibility. Now, in the human scene, we are acted upon by forces outside our own being. We are affected by weather, climate, foods. We are affected by racial beliefs, national beliefs. We are affected by whether or not we're in the midst of a boom or whether we're in the midst of a depression. We are acted upon by germs. We are acted upon by the belief of age, by heredity, by environment, by education or the lack of it. And so it is that we are enabled to blame all of our ills and all of our troubles on someone else or on something else, on powers beyond our control. Some people, looking around and finding nothing and no one to blame them on, finally look up to the stars to see how they were on the night they were born, and then decide it must be the fault of the stars. or they remember somebody who didn't like them and who has died and who is probably cursing them from the other side of the grave. We go to all ridiculous ends to alibi ourselves for our failures, to make excuses, to find a reason why we are not responsible. Now, as a matter of fact, still in the human picture, there is only one reason for our ills, our misfortunes, our discords, and that reason is ignorance, spiritual ignorance. We were never taught the truth, and being in ignorance of truth, we had nothing with which to meet the circumstances of life, and so we became victims of everything or everybody. Now, the entire human race is in this same position. They may all truthfully say, I am not responsible for my ills. But there's only one reason why they can say that truthfully. That is, I was never taught the truth. Because those who have been taught the truth do not have to be victims of forces external to themselves. Browning has rightly said that truth, or the real power, Christ, is within ourselves. That is the truth that is never taught to mankind. Only those fortunate enough to come in contact with a mystical teaching are ever taught that the power of their own lives lies within themselves, and therefore no person, no group of persons, no nation of persons, nor conditions nor circumstances can operate to harm, to destroy, to prevent, in the experience of those who have been taught the truth of being. You might ask, where is that truth to be found on earth? And the answer is, in very, very few places. Therefore, it is only those who, through some inner grace, are led to such teachings who become immune to the things of this world. Actually, then, at the present time, no one in the human picture is to blame for their troubles, because they are ignorant of the truth of being. After they learn the truth of being, they are no longer in that same position of being able to blame someone else, anyone else, at any time. Now, the truth of being is, and has been from the beginning of time, that God created all that was made. All that God made is good. Man he made in his own image and likeness, and he gave man dominion of everything between the skies and the bottom of the seas. Therefore, man, the image and likeness of God, empowered with this spiritual dominion, can never claim that his troubles come from anyone or any condition, because he has been given himself dominion. Now, the human race lost that dominion and therefore sank into an ignorance of his own identity and of the fact that truth is within ourselves, Christ is within ourselves, spiritual dominion is within ourselves, and so we sank to the state of the prodigal son. The prodigal son who wasted his dominion, his God-given heritage, and ended up with a swine, or ended up as humanity has ended up, in ditches, in slavery, in war, in depression, in poverty, in disease, in sin. All of this is the prodigal state. All of this continues in human experience until the individual, like the prodigal son in Scripture, begins to wonder, is this my natural estate? Even the servants in my father's house are better off than I am. And then he begins to work his way back to his father's house. And as he approaches, he is once again robed with that cloak of divine authority and the ring of divine authority. And he finds himself once again with dominion. So, the human being who for any reason finds a spiritual truth teaching, whether they seek it for some healing, physical, mental, moral, or financial, or whether they seek it for the sake of finding truth, whatever the reason is that puts them on the spiritual path, if they find a mystical teaching, it will bring them back to the realization that truth or power or dominion is within me.